the second half, we're going to talk about products, and if that makes you nervous, please leave at half time. But it'll be really outstanding. You're going to enjoy it. Because Helen and I love. Oh, sorry, no, I think I just broke your machinery. That's okay. Send me the bill. Helen and I love talking on marriage. We've been married a long time. We met each other in high school. Next year we celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. She's the one who deserves the clap. We have 4 children. We have 11 grandchildren and 11 and a half grandchildren. And they're just wonderful. Nothing worth doing happens in a hurry. Nothing great happens in a hurry. You've heard Rome wasn't built in a day. Nothing great is built in a day, except for Jesus' death on the cross, and in one day he solved something for eternity. When it comes to life, things take time, they take commitment. And therefore, when it comes to the issue of marriage and family, we love helping people figure out what does it take to make it last. Not everybody knows. I heard about this pastor once who was wanting in his new church, first up, to do a seminar on marriage. He thought, you know what I'll do is I'll help the married people. So he came on board, hadn't met anybody. First thing he tells the elders, we're going to do a marriage seminar. And one of the elders said, look, I think we have an Italian guy in our church who's about to be married for 50 years. And the new pastor said, oh, that's brilliant. I'll interview him on the first night. You should always interview these people before you interview them on the night. Well, it comes the night, we've got all these people in the place, and pastor jumps up, he says, ladies and gentlemen, it's so wonderful to think that marriage can last. And we have one of our members, I believe there's a Luigi. Do we have Luigi here tonight? Luigi, come on up the front. I believe Luigi's about to celebrate his 50th wedding anniversary. Everybody claps. They said, Luigi, he says, tell us, what do you think is the secret to you being married for 50 years? He said, well, pastor, I'll tell you this. When I've been married about 30 years, I took my wife to Italy. He said, that's very moving. He said, Luigi, that's very romantic, beautiful, wonderful. What are you going to do for your 50th? He said, I'm going to go and visit her. We're hoping to give better stuff than that. We've got better ideas for you than that. And as a result, we want to talk to you about what it takes when you want it to last. What I'm about to share with you, what we're going to share with you tonight, is just a snippet from a whole course. It takes 10 weeks to do the course. We don't have 10 weeks, we've got one night. But it's called Making Marriage Better, and that's what we're on about. Why do you get married? You get married because you bump into someone who attracts you. Well, you need to be aware of this, that attraction can be relatively dangerous. And often in managing the challenge of attraction, we bump into issues that we're really not sure about what the problems are. The communication issues, the understanding that goes to make it last is imperative, because every person has a dream of something like that. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh. One of the reasons that fairy tales are so endemic, they just persist through generation after generation, is because often fairy tales touch a dream in the human heart. And the thought that someone would love me and that I could love them and that would never go away is such an attractive proposition to the human heart that people marry. What an extraordinary thought, that people stand alongside each other without knowing what the future will hold, and they make a commitment to one another. I stood beside a 19-year-old girl in 1968, and I said to her, forsaking all others and cleaving only unto you, for better or worse, richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, till death us do part. I promised her that. And she pinned her future to that promise. What an extraordinary thing. How can you ever do that? Well, it's because there's a dream in our heart. It just takes some skill for the dream to be fulfilled. See, when he said to her, sweetheart, I've got a few boys coming around tonight, we're just going to fool around in the lounge room, She had no idea that that's exactly what he was talking about. When he said to her, "Sweetheart, why don't we just slip into the jacuzzi and have a little fun?" That was not what she was thinking about. When he said to her, "Sweetheart, you stay in bed and I'll make breakfast," she had no idea what the outcome of that idea just might be. When she said to him, "I need a handbag," he was mightily puzzled because he knows she has a handbag. In fact, she has quite a number of handbags. How many handbags can a woman need? Well, one thing you have to learn here tonight is that there are no right number of handbags for a woman to have. It's a very important insight for a man to get. When she said to him, "I need a pair of shoes," he was kind of puzzled about that because he knew she has a pair of shoes. For him, if he has 2 pairs of shoes, that's normally one more than he's actually needing at the moment. For her, there is no right number of shoes. See, if you want your marriage to last, at some point a man must learn there is no right number of shoes, because see, men do not think in terms of accessorising. See, I own clothes. None of them to me need to match. As a consequence, I'm often not permitted to dress myself. I need to sit on the bed with the children and wait until my turn comes. And she gives me clothes that are approved for what's going on during the day. There are some things that we just need to learn about each other, but every one of us do have that dream. There are so many issues that militate against the fulfillment of the dream that it really deserves seminars like this. One of the saddest things about life is that often for the really important issues, like marriage and like parenting, we have often done almost no preparation. Lots of people have spent way more time preparing for a wedding than they have ever taken to prepare for a married life together. And because of the challenges involved, but the outcome, the value of doing it, nights like this are gold. If you learn one thing tonight that bonds the heart of your spouse to yourself, that little bit closer tonight was worthwhile. Because there is nothing more wonderful than a marriage that lasts. And I know that because I grew up in a home where my father loved my mother. Probably one of the greatest gifts my father ever gave me was that he loved my mother passionately. My dad was a school teacher. Sometimes I felt he was a bit severe, a bit straight and a bit severe. But there were those moments around the kitchen table where he'd get this goofy look on his face and he'd start saying to us, "Isn't she just the prettiest little mother, kids? Isn't she just the prettiest little mother?" And suddenly my weird dad would just get up and run around the table and be kissing Mum on the back of the neck, and she'd be, and we'd all be sitting around the table. Dad's being silly again. But it marked my heart that a man can love a woman all the days of his life. And as a result, we're here to help. There are so many issues involved. Brain wiring is one of them. Let me just see if I can show you an example of the challenges that sometimes men and women have in communicating. Now, this is a beer ad, but you know there's a whole theology, there's a whole insight in this beer ad that is just amazing. Now, I'll quickly explain it to you because it happens so fast. It's a beer ad, so it's all over in 40 seconds. You might miss it. If you listen in the background, hopefully we get enough sound out of this thing. If you listen in the background, you'll hear a woman chewing out her husband inside the house. He's going to play golf, but he never told her. Out of the house comes a guy, and one of the men in the driveway says, "What's the problem?" He says, "Karen won't let him go." He says to his friends, "I'm going in." The boy in the car says, "What's he doing?" His friend says, "He speaks woman."
It's on. But you forgot to tell Karen. Shall we let him go?
I'm not going to put it in the freezer. I'm going to throw it in the bin.
Going in.
It's starving as far as I'm concerned.
She
I'm
did?
not looking after your mum.
Speaks woman.
Oh, that's just great, Mitch. We've been thinking of telling Nick, huh?
Hi, Karen. I'm Dave. Part of Mitch's support network. You know, Mitch loves you, but he feels he needs some time out with some special friends to invigorate his soul so he can love you even more.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to get a golf course.
Ah, boy. Now, there's a whole seminar right there. We'll let that one wait for another time. Brain wiring issues. We could spend a whole night just talking about significant issues. Tomorrow morning at the men's conference, at men's time, we'll talk a little more on the brain wiring issues. But brain wiring issues are so profound that they can, misunderstood, just bring a marriage to a place of great struggle and pain. But tonight we're going to ask ourselves the question, where do you go for help? Where do you go for help when it comes to building a permanent relationship? And I want to tell you, you go to probably the last place that some people would imagine you'd ever go. Now, I believe in the Bible. I believe the Bible's really helpful. And yet, when it comes to marriage, whose marriage in the Bible can give you a few clues on how to do yours? Adam and Eve? Problems started right there. How about Abraham and Sarah? Well, you read the story a little closely, you'd be very concerned. He gave his wife away to a visiting dignitary on 2 occasions. I've never done that even once. And I want to tell you, it is not a good idea for the permanency of a marriage. How about Jacob and his warring 4 wives? Well, he could prove to you the value of deciding not to marry a woman and her sister in the same week. That's a very bad idea. How about David and his 6 wives, or Solomon and his 1,000? Who'ly do? Well, I can't find anyone in the back half of the Bible that might help us. What about the front half? How about Jesus? And he never got married. What about the Apostle Paul? Wrote half the New Testament. He never got married either. Where do you go in the Bible to find a marriage that'll help you? And the answer is, there isn't one. Except for the one place that you would perhaps never even identify as a wedding. And that is to the 10 Commandments. That is to Mount Sinai. See, most people don't understand what the 10 Commandments are. They think there are 10 things to do to get to heaven. No, they're not. 10 things to do to get God to like you. No, they're not that either. 10 things to do to get saved. No, they're not 10 things to do to get saved. See, when God brought Israel out of Egypt to himself, he'd already saved her. He saved her by the Passover lamb and by the power of his own hand. He brought her to Sinai to invite a nation to become his bride. That he would be her husband. That she would be his bride, and together they would change the world. They'd touch the world. Now, the 10 Commandments were the wedding vows. The 10 Commandments were not about salvation, they were about preservation. And if you understand this, there is insight in the 10 Commandments that will help you to build permanent relationships. Doesn't matter whether it's marriage, it doesn't matter if it's a business. Are you a businessman? I tell you what, if you understand the heart that's in the 10 Commandments, you'll know the 10 big building blocks of a great business. Because you cannot build a great business by having employees that come in the door and out the door every 5 minutes. If you want to build a great business, you're going to have to build a team. You're going to have to build people who can stick together, who know how to make a commitment and build a great team, or you'll never build a great business. Can't do it alone. Build a church. Nobody can build a church alone. A church is it's